There comes a moment in life when presence is no longer enough, when your effort, your energy, your love, and your consistency go unnoticed. Something inside you whispers that it's time to step back, and it's only in that silence, in that space, that the truth reveals itself. The day you step away, everything they thought was secure, steady, and certain begins to collapse, not because you were weak, not because you gave up, but because they never realized the power of what they had until it was gone. It's in that very moment that the reality sets in. The conversations that were once ignored become echoes that haunt them. The gestures that were dismissed now turn into memories they replay again and again. They start to see that what they believed would always be there has slipped through their fingers, and while you rise in strength, they begin to fall apart in the weight of their own regret. This isn't about punishment. It's not about revenge. It's about truth. The truth that your presence mattered more than they ever allowed themselves to admit. The truth that you held things together, that you gave more than you ever took, and that when you step away, the imbalance finally exposes itself. That collapse is not your responsibility. It's the cost of their blindness. And so, the message today is simple. Never underestimate the power of your absence, because sometimes it speaks louder than your words, stronger than your efforts, and deeper than your presence ever could. When you step away, something remarkable happens that words often cannot capture. The silence you leave behind becomes louder than every conversation you ever had. The absence of your presence speaks with a weight that no amount of noise can drown out. It is in that very emptiness that the truth of your value finally comes to the surface. People grow accustomed to what they have. They start to believe that consistency means permanence, that love means endless tolerance, and that presence means forever. But when you step away, when you remove yourself from the equation, the illusion of security fades instantly, and what is left is a raw confrontation with reality. The gap you leave is not small, it is enormous, because you were never just filling space. You were contributing energy, heart, effort, and stability that could not be replaced. It is often in human nature to take for granted what is consistently offered. Your gestures, your sacrifices, your time, these things became so woven into the daily rhythm of life that they were no longer noticed. But the moment you're no longer there, the rhythm is broken. It's like a song missing its most important note, a building suddenly without its foundation. That absence isn't just noticed, it's felt deeply in every corner, in every moment that used to be shared, in every little detail that once seemed ordinary but now feels incomplete. And the one who thought they could live without acknowledging your worth is left scrambling, searching, and wondering how they ever believed they could manage without you. The absence becomes a mirror. It reflects back the truth of how much of yourself you poured into the connection. They begin to realize that the laughter you brought, the support you gave, the quiet strength you carried, all of it was the glue holding everything together. It wasn't obvious when you were there because it was always flowing, always steady. But now, in the silence, it is undeniable. The gap between what they thought they could handle and what they are actually facing becomes painful to witness. What's even more powerful is that your stepping away doesn't just reveal your value to them. It reminds you of your own worth as well. It forces you to see that you were the one carrying more weight than you should have, that your contributions were far greater than they appeared, and that your presence was never ordinary, it was extraordinary. In that moment of absence, your value shines more clearly than it ever could while you were right there in the middle of it. When you step away, they may fall apart, but you begin to rise, because absence is not emptiness, it is clarity. It is the undeniable proof that your worth was never small, never replaceable, never optional. It was always the cornerstone, and the day you're gone, that truth cannot be ignored. The moment you step away, the illusion of security begins to shatter. For so long they may have believed that your presence was permanent, that no matter how little they gave in return, you would always be there. It's human nature to lean on what feels constant, to assume that something steady will remain steady forever. But the truth is, nothing is guaranteed, not love, not attention, not care, unless it is nurtured and valued. When you step back, the ground they once stood on with confidence begins to crumble beneath their feet. That illusion they built in their mind, the one where you would always stay no matter how they behaved, disappears in an instant. They start to see that your presence was not a guarantee but a gift, and now that it is gone, their entire sense of stability is shaken. Security built on assumptions is fragile. It feels strong on the surface, but it has no foundation. They may have believed that your kindness, your efforts, and your loyalty were endless supplies. But when those things are withdrawn, they realize how much of their balance and comfort was tied to you. Suddenly, the little things you did every day, the check-ins, the encouragement, the reminders of care are gone, and the silence left in their place makes them realize how much they leaned on you without ever acknowledging it. It is not just your presence they miss. It's the sense of certainty and safety that came with knowing you were there. The shattering of that illusion is not gentle. It hits like a wave of cold reality. The truth dawns on them that they were not as independent, as strong, or as unaffected as they believed themselves to be. Your absence forces them to confront the uncomfortable reality that they had built their comfort around someone they didn't properly value. It's not just loss they feel, it's regret. It's the realization that they mistook your presence for permanence, when in fact it was a choice you made every single day to show up, to give, and to care. And once that choice is no longer being made, they see the consequences of having taken it for granted. The collapse of that illusion can leave them desperate, scrambling to rebuild what they once ignored. They may try to fill the void with distractions, with substitutes, with denial, but nothing quite compares to the sense of security that came from you, because it was not just about what you did, it was about who you were and the energy you brought. Once that is gone, no replacement feels authentic, and the truth stands exposed. Their security was never built within themselves. It was borrowed from you, and once you take it back, they are left with nothing but the reality of what they failed to see when they had the chance. When you step away, the silence that follows is not just the absence of words, but the absence of energy, attention, and connection. Silence has a power that noise can never compete with. When you were there, your voice, your presence, your engagement created a rhythm, a steady beat in their life that they could rely on. But once that stops, once the noise disappears, the silence begins to echo. It is in that echo that the weight of your absence is fully realized. People often underestimate silence until it arrives. They think it's nothingness, but in reality, silence is one of the loudest forces there is. It magnifies everything. It amplifies the loneliness, it highlights the void, and it brings every neglected truth to the surface. The silence you leave behind is a mirror. It reflects back to them how much they relied on your presence to fill spaces they didn't even realize were empty. That silence whispers the questions they avoided. It shines a light on the things they pushed aside, and it forces them to confront emotions they buried beneath your constant care. Suddenly, the things they overlooked become unbearable. The conversations they thought were unimportant now play on repeat in their mind. The moments they dismissed as ordinary now feel extraordinary simply because they are no longer happening. What once felt routine now feels priceless because it is gone. And here's the truth. Silence has a way of stripping away illusions. When you were there, they may have distracted themselves, convinced themselves they didn't need to acknowledge your efforts or your value. But in your silence, there is no distraction. The void itself becomes a reminder. Every unanswered message, every quiet evening, every moment of stillness is a reminder that something vital is missing. Silence does not allow them to escape the reality of what they've lost. It forces them to sit with it, to feel it, to recognize it in its rawest form. That is why silence is more powerful than confrontation. Words can be debated, argued, or ignored, but silence cannot be escaped. It lingers, it stays, it seeps into every part of their being and forces reflection. It forces them to replay the past, to consider what could have been different, and to finally grasp the value of what they had. In that silence, they realize that the noise you brought into their life was never chaos. It was comfort. It wasn't distraction. It was connection. And without it, life feels colder, emptier, and far less meaningful. When you step away, silence becomes the teacher they never wanted but desperately needed. It is the lesson they cannot talk their way out of, cannot deny, and cannot hide from. The silence doesn't just make them miss you. It makes them face the truth of who you were to them and what they failed to cherish while they had the chance. When you step away, the emotions they never wanted to face begin to rise to the surface. As long as you were present, there was a buffer, a shield, a comfort that kept those emotions buried. They could convince themselves that everything was fine, that the cracks in the relationship or the gaps in their effort didn't really matter because you were still there. But the moment you step back, those suppressed feelings come rushing in with a force that cannot be ignored. Regret, guilt, longing, and even fear all start to crowd their mind. It's like a flood breaking through a dam. The emotions they denied for so long suddenly have nowhere to hide, and they are forced to feel them in their raw, unfiltered form. Regret is often the loudest of these emotions. It whispers reminders of moments they dismissed, times when you asked for more, times when they didn't listen, and opportunities they wasted. The longer you are away, the louder that regret becomes. It takes what was once background noise and turns it into a constant voice inside their head. They begin to realize that the words they didn't say, the gratitude they didn't express, and the effort they didn't put in are now haunting them. That weight of regret grows heavier with each day, and it fuels the sense of loss they can no longer deny. Guilt follows closely behind. It's one thing to miss someone, it's another to know you contributed to their absence. Guilt is not just about missing you. It's about realizing that they could have done something differently, but they didn't. It forces them to acknowledge their own role in the unraveling. Every memory becomes a reminder, not just of what they had, but of how little they gave compared to what they received. That guilt lingers like a shadow, making the emptiness even more painful. It turns ordinary moments into triggers, reminding them of their part in driving you away. Alongside regret and guilt comes a deep longing. This is the emotional pull that makes them crave your presence more than ever before. It is not just about wanting you back. It's about needing the comfort and stability that your presence brought. The longing intensifies because now they are aware of what they lost, and the awareness makes the desire almost unbearable. They replay conversations, they imagine scenarios where they did things differently, they even create fantasies about how things might be if they had another chance. Longing is a cruel teacher because it doesn't just show them what's gone, it shows them how much they depended on it. And then, fear creeps in, fear that you won't come back, fear that someone else will see the value they ignored, fear that the opportunity to make things right has already slipped away. This fear becomes the final layer of emotional turmoil because, unlike regret and guilt, which reflect the past, fear stares directly into the future. It reminds them that they are not in control and that the consequences of their neglect may be permanent. It's a sobering reality that makes your absence hit even harder. In the end, when you step away, the emotions they buried become unavoidable. They can no longer numb themselves or hide behind distractions. They are left to feel everything at once: regret for the past, guilt for their choices, longing for what's missing, and fear of what's to come. And it's in that storm of emotions that they finally understand the true cost of not valuing you when you were there. When you step away, they are forced to confront the emptiness within themselves that they had been avoiding all along. As long as you were present, they could project their sense of stability and worth outward, relying on you to fill the gaps they didn't want to face. You became the anchor they leaned on, the steady force that disguised their own lack of inner strength. But once you remove yourself from that space, the void becomes impossible to ignore. It is no longer masked by your presence, your consistency, or your energy. They are left staring at themselves in the mirror of your absence, and the reflection is not something they can easily face. This emptiness isn't just about loneliness, it's about the realization that they never built the foundation within themselves to stand strong without you. It's about recognizing that their confidence, their sense of importance, even their ability to feel secure, was tied to you in ways they never admitted. When you step away, the scaffolding falls, and what's left is a fragile core that can't carry the weight of their own emotional world. That confrontation with their own emptiness is uncomfortable, even terrifying, because it shows them just how dependent they were on what you gave. They begin to see the little things they once dismissed as background noise, the encouragement you gave, the way you reminded them of their worth, the energy you brought into their life. At the time, these things felt like small, ordinary moments, but now that they're gone, they realize how much they relied on them to get through their days. Without those words, without that energy, without that steady reassurance, they feel the weight of silence pressing down on them. It's not just about missing you, it's about missing the version of themselves that only seemed to exist when you were around. The void they feel pushes them into a state of discomfort that many people try to escape. They'll look for distractions, friends, work, hobbies, even unhealthy habits, to try and mask the emptiness. But none of it quite works, because those things don't replace what you gave. Distractions can only numb for a moment, but the silence always returns. The truth always creeps back in. They are alone with themselves, and it is not enough. And in that realization, they start to question not just what they lost, but who they are without you. This is the moment where self-reflection hits the hardest. Because when you step away, they can no longer avoid the truth. They are left with the raw reality of their own unfulfilled needs, their own neglected growth, and their own lack of emotional maturity. It's a painful wake-up call, one that shakes the very core of their identity, and though they may try to resist it, deep down they know the emptiness they feel is not just because of your absence. It's because they never built themselves strong enough to stand without you. And that realization changes everything. When you step away, something shifts inside them that words cannot easily explain. It is no longer just about missing you. It becomes about realizing that your presence was the very force that gave their life balance, meaning, and direction. Suddenly, the things they once overlooked or dismissed transform into treasures in their memory. The way you listened when no one else did, the way your presence softened the hardest days, the way you reminded them of who they could be, all of it becomes magnified in your absence. When you are gone, they don't just notice the space you leave behind, they notice the light that disappears with you. This recognition is powerful because it wakes them up to the truth they avoided when you were there. You were never just another person in their world. You were the one who held it together without even trying. The laughter you brought wasn't just noise, it was healing. The guidance you gave wasn't just advice, it was direction. And the love, care, or energy you poured into them wasn't just convenience, it was life-changing. They may not have admitted it when they had it, but in your absence, it becomes undeniable. Every memory replays louder, every gesture grows in value, and every sacrifice you made becomes crystal clear. When someone begins to realize your true value only after you step away, it creates a storm inside them. Regret begins to weigh heavily because they see all the moments they took for granted. They start to think about how differently things might have been if they had acknowledged your worth sooner, if they had cherished the connection when it was right in front of them. That regret doesn't fade quickly. It grows deeper with every reminder of what's missing. They may try to fill that gap with other people or distractions, but the truth is, no substitute compares to the uniqueness of what you brought. You were irreplaceable, and now that absence forces them to face it. This realization also humbles them, because for the first time, they see that what they thought was stable and permanent could disappear in a moment. They believed you would always be there, but when you step away, it shatters that illusion. And in that breaking, they come face with the reality that relationships, connection, and presence cannot be taken for granted. The very thing they assumed they could always count on is now the very thing they long for most. That longing drives them into deeper awareness. It forces them to change how they see not only you, but themselves, and ultimately, this realization becomes transformative. Because when you are gone, they don't just miss your presence. They begin to see you as the compass that kept them aligned, the fire that gave warmth to their world, and the grounding force they didn't know they needed until it was too late. Your absence becomes the greatest teacher. It shows them the power of presence, the fragility of connection, and the deep truth that once you step away, life is never the same again. Every journey of connection carries with it the silent truth that presence is power. Throughout this message, one idea has echoed over and over. When you step away, the impact of your absence is undeniable. It shakes the foundation of those who once leaned on you. It forces them to look at themselves in a mirror they may not be ready for, and it uncovers the value they could not see when you were standing right in front of them. Your presence is not just a detail in someone's life. It is a force that brings meaning, balance, and light. And when it is gone, the emptiness that follows is the greatest teacher of all. We've explored how absence reveals truth, how it exposes dependency, and how it magnifies the moments that were once dismissed as ordinary. But the deeper point here is this: your worth is not diminished by being overlooked in the moment. The reality is that your value doesn't disappear when someone fails to acknowledge it. It simply waits for the silence of your absence to scream it louder than words ever could. And that silence teaches lessons more powerful than any conversation could. What's important to recognize is that this dynamic is not about punishment, it's about awakening. When you step away, those who leaned on your presence are forced to grow, to confront their own insecurities, and to realize the weight of what they had. They come to understand that the anchor they once took for granted is no longer there to hold them steady. And while that realization may be painful for them, it is also liberating for you, because it affirms the truth of your impact, your worth, and your irreplaceable role. At the heart of it all, the message is about power, the quiet power of presence and the undeniable power of absence. When you are there, you inspire, you guide, you strengthen. When you are gone, you reveal, you challenge, you awaken. Both are necessary, and both serve a purpose. The day you step away may feel like a breaking point for someone else, but for you, it is the ultimate moment of clarity. The truth of who you are and the difference you make becomes impossible to ignore. So as we close this journey of reflection, remember this: never underestimate the power of your presence, and never fear the power of your absence. Both carry lessons that change lives, both carry weight that cannot be denied. When you walk away, you do not lose your value, you illuminate it. And in that illumination, the world finally sees what was always there: your strength, your worth, and your undeniable place as a force that shapes hearts, lives, and destinies. Thank you, my friends, for taking this time, for opening your heart, and for allowing these words to reach a deeper part of you. Every moment we spend reflecting on the power of presence and the truth revealed in absence is a step toward growth, clarity, and strength. I am deeply grateful that you chose to be here, because it shows you're not just listening. You're ready to embrace the lessons life has been whispering all along. As we part ways today, remember that your value is not defined by who sees it in the moment. Your value is constant, unshakable, and undeniable. And sometimes it takes distance, sometimes it takes silence, for others to realize what you've carried within you all along. That truth should never be forgotten. Carry this message with you. You are more powerful than you know, and your presence is a gift that shapes the lives of those around you. And if the day ever comes when you choose to step away, do not fear it. It is not the end, it is the awakening. It is the moment when everything you are becomes impossible to ignore. So thank you for walking this journey with me, for listening, and for allowing me to speak into your life today. May you leave here with clarity, strength, and a renewed sense of your own worth. Goodbye for now, and remember, your presence changes worlds, and your absence reveals truths that cannot be denied. Until we meet again, stay strong, stay true, and never forget your power.